I'd like to call to order this committee whole meeting for the town of Saugeen Shores and welcome everyone in the council chambers this evening. Our first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility to do so. You can do so now or when it arises on the agenda. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda, and this evening we have 4 delegations. And the first is Jason Wepler. He's here from the Grey Bruce Health Unit to update us on play. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. So I'll be brief tonight. I see you have a full agenda. I just wanted to give a quick update on our Play in Bruce Grey physical activity strategy. So this is a strategy that covers both Grey and Bruce County and includes all 17 municipalities. I'm here on behalf of the Grey Bruce Health Unit because we provide some regional coordination for the program, and the 17 municipalities are involved in the program. So just very quickly, our vision is to encourage all residents of the 2 counties to be active through unstructured play, and our mission is that our communities work collaboratively to promote play as a key aspect of physical activity and overall health. Just a quick history of the program for those who may not be aware. The program came to be in 2006. At that time, the Ministry of Sport mandated that all municipalities have a physical activity plan in order to apply for funding. So rather than all 17 municipalities in Grey Bruce coming up with their own plan, we all got together and came up with a plan that would cover all 17 municipalities, thus Play in Bruce Grey. We've seen similar programs across the province as well, in motion in some of the larger areas in the southwest, and I'm happy to say that we're one of the few programs in the province that's still in existence and functioning well. In 2007, we held our launch event. It was held in Hanover. We had Silken Lauman come as our keynote speaker, primarily because this play program is based on Silken's program from BC called Child's Play. So we bussed kids in from surrounding schools. Silken led a number of unstructured play activities and games in the morning, and then in the afternoon we had elected officials sign our play charter, which is the picture in the bottom right. We've had municipalities sign the play charter in 2007. I was here in 2012 and had all the municipalities re-sign that charter, and I'll be asking for a similar support at the end of the presentation this evening. I wanted to give a real quick update on a recent grant that Play received. So in 2017, April, we received just over $30,000 from the Ontario Sport and Recreation Community Fund, really with the goal of rebranding Play and what the initiative is all about. Historically, we focused on physical activity for young children and families, but we realized that all demographics of our population need to be active. So we really wanted to expand the mandate to make it appeal to adults and older adults, as well as those younger members of our communities. So we've done a full rebrand of our Play logo, our websites, our Facebook and Twitter accounts, some of our digital advertising materials, and we have now branding guidelines as well that we've shared with all of our municipal partners. We just completed a radio and Facebook promotional campaign surrounding the longest day of Play. Again, to get word out, direct people to our new website and get them on our social media platforms as well. We have 2 main projects left before our grant expires in March of 2019. So we're looking at holding a couple fundamental movement skills workshops. These will be offered through the Coaches Association of Ontario, and we'll certainly be inviting municipal recreation staff, volunteer coaches, and the like to those sessions. We're looking at 2. They'd be towards the end of September, 1 in Owen Sound and 1 in Chesley tentatively, and details should be forthcoming on those soon. And then finally, we're looking at purchasing and distributing play kits throughout the municipalities in Grey Bruce. So we're looking at 1 kit per municipality. It would basically be a bag of different active equipment, frisbees, balls, etc., that could either be placed in a library or community center for loan, much like the libraries do with pedometers and bike helmets and fishing kits and other materials like that. So my request this evening, I've brought the Play charter with me tonight that I'll leave with the clerk, so I'm asking that you consider re-signing the Play charter for the next 4-year term, which would run us through to 2022. As you've done for the past 11 years now, we will be asking again in the fall for a $300 donation to the program. This adds just a little bit of sustainability for us. All that money comes in, gets pooled together. It basically gives us some bulk purchasing power, so we buy promotional materials, anything to get kids active with the logo on it, frisbees, balls, backpacks, those types of things, and then we hand those back out to the municipalities to distribute at events in their community. As I've mentioned, we've had great support from your municipal staff. I must admit, of all the municipalities, Saugeen Shores is probably the first to step up to the plate if I need some extra help. I know Lisa and her team are always willing to provide that extra support, so I don't anticipate that I need to ask for any municipal representation because I know you're well represented at the committee table. In terms of return on investment, continued support from public health in terms of regional coordination. We've been very fortunate to have a number of funding opportunities, including a $10,000 grant from Bruce Power for the past 5 years. And again, that goes into purchasing promotion of materials, which again goes back out to the municipalities to distribute. We also try at our quarterly meetings to have some professional development opportunities. So as we bring those rec staff together from across the 2 counties, we try and have guest speakers just to enhance their learning as well. And then common feedback from the group is just the networking, being able to bring all those like-minded individuals together at our meetings to network, learn what's working well in one municipality and challenges, etc., has been very positive. So I will leave the charter with Linda, and I'm open to take questions at this point.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions of Jason? Councillor Mike Meyer.
I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, Jason, at least for all the good work you do with this project. I think any situation we can get families out, well, all ages out, more active through play is the absolute right thing to do. And our whole desire is to keep people more healthy, and that's a great thing. Question I do have, when the program first started, I know the community committees, the play committees, were very active at the onset. How active are they today, or are they active? And how's the committee? Are there still committees? And have they fallen by the wayside or not? And what are they comprised of if they're still around? I'm not sure about that.
Sure. Unfortunately, they have fallen by the wayside. Saugeen Shores was actually the last community action group that we had functioning. For us, it was just a matter of sustainability with volunteers. We know volunteers are very stretched, and it was just very difficult to keep those groups functioning, being led by volunteers with support from the municipality and public health. So we've kind of taken a new approach, I think one that's hopefully just as effective. But yeah, in terms of what's happening on the ground level in the communities, it looks different now.
Councillor Dave Mayan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thanks, Jason, once again for echo Councillor Myatt's sentiments across the way. A couple of questions that came to mind when I was going through your material was, what are the dates for the longest day and the Kids' Day of Play? And the second question is, how much do you coordinate with some of the community groups that we have that are promoting recreational play and activities? We have, soccer and softball, and the Saugeen Shores recreational athletics group, and there's a whole pile of groups that are promoting similar agenda as you are, and I would like to think that if you called the leaders of those groups together, they might get onto your charter, and they might help you promote some of your ideas.
Sure. So answer to the first question, we have 2 key events each year, the first being Family Day of Play, which always occurs on the 3rd Monday in February on the Family Day holiday, and then the longest day of play is always on June 21st, the longest day of the year. So those are our 2 big events that we promote. In response to your second question, we've, I guess, had limited opportunities to engage some of the local community groups. With our focus being so much on unstructured play, we totally realize there's a value and a role in the community for structured sports, minor sports, and we would certainly welcome involvement from some of these other groups, but we certainly don't want to, I guess, duplicate service or be redundant in any way. So we've kind of, I guess, kept our distance from the minor sports and kind of let them do our thing, and we're promoting our piece as well. But we would certainly welcome any and all to be part of this initiative. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thanks very much, Jason. And they always have a competition to see which municipality wins, I believe, with most participants. And I wonder if you've decided that yet for the longest day of play this year?
We actually have pulled back from that.
That's a good idea.
It was a little bit too much work, and Saugeen Shores always seemed to come out on top anyway. So
that's why I asked. Anyway, thanks very much, Jason.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Next delegation is Melanie Myers from the Southampton BIA, and she's here about the Southampton streetscape. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and town staff. We are here today on behalf of the Southampton BIA to discuss Phase 1 of the downtown Southampton streetscape. As per our letter sent May 2018, we requested that several issues with the Phase 1 curb extensions be addressed, and we are here today to review those suggested changes. So just for a little background, when the Southampton BIA was formed in November 2014, we immediately reviewed the streetscape plan that had been presented to Council. There were some major changes to the downtown area of Southampton proposed by SGL Planning and Design, including the removal of angle parking and the addition of a treed median down the center of High Street. Based on early feedback from our membership, we recognize the importance of retaining angle parking in our downtown core, and in January of 2015, the Southampton BIA addressed Town Council to formally advocate for the retention of angle parking. After seeking out other communities with angle parking and curb extensions with paving stones, we found some beautiful examples, and we at the Southampton BIA proposed adopting some similar design elements on High Street. Beautification is the main objective of BIAs, and the Southampton BIA, through its Streetscape Committee, which includes 3 of our 7 board members, requested inclusion in the town's discussions and asked to be kept abreast of plans and projects, and the municipality obliged. The BIA board members are not engineers, draftspeople, or urban planners. We are a volunteer board representing the business sector and advocating for streetscape improvement. Unfortunately, the end product of the Phase 1 High Street streetscape improvements completed in 2017 did not materialize into the aesthetic vision that we had anticipated. The BIA board has written to the town asking some Phase 1 issues be addressed and requesting that these matters be corrected before the town undertakes any further work on High Street. We would like council and town to consider approving the 3 following changes to Phase 1. Number 1, replace the grass and asphalt with interlocking brick pavers, a product that is lower maintenance and more usable walkable space on the curb extension. Number 2, at the same time, replace the sidewalk in front of the CIBC as it is in disrepair. Number 3, add an illuminated bollard at the end of the curb extension for an improved aesthetic with a dual purpose of nighttime and winter marking. We believe that Southampton's downtown can be improved. Our intention is to represent the BIA business membership alongside the community at large to maintain, highlight, and add to the beauty of Southampton's unique downtown. There is aging infrastructure that needs attention. There are incoming accessibility criteria to meet, and there will be, we hope, continued increase of visitor and residents traffic to consider. Folks who come to the core for outings on foot, on bikes, on scooters, with walkers and wheelchairs, and by car. How our downtown meets the needs of all visitors while we work to attract and retain small business in our center are important factors to economic development. We appreciate your consideration in the important Phase 1 improvements. We're also looking ahead to continued collaboration on further phases, areas that we believe should include budget dollars designated to sidewalk replacement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melanie. Any questions for Mel? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks, Melanie, for the presentation. I agree with all 3 of the things, and I probably could add 3 more. But I did want to just ask you for clarification on the number 3. It reads as though it's 1 illuminated bollard. Are you imagining 6 illuminated bollards, or
1 per curb extension.
Okay, so 6 altogether.
That would equal 6.
Thank you.
Councillor Mike Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Melanie, for your presentation. I attended my first Southampton BIA board meeting a couple weeks ago, and I learned a lot from your group. Very energetic bunch. I do support these 3 initiatives, and the question I have, Mr. Mayor, through you to our Director of Public Works, is this something that we will see Amanda at a future meeting in terms of costing to to potentially change out these three things, make amendments to these three areas? Is this something we'll see in the form of a staff report at a future meeting?
If it's not in this year's budget, Mike, I think you're likely to see it in next year's budget.
And one of the comments, Mr. Mayor, was there's funds remaining from phase one that I think the Southampton BIA were hoping to reallocate to these three initiatives from savings from phase one. Is that?
I think maybe perhaps funding from what would have been phase two, perhaps.
I have one other question, Melanie. The bump outs have been a little bit controversial, obviously. What is BIA doing from the board's perspective to reach out to business to talk about, not only phase one, but potentially phase two? Are you changing the methods in which at all in terms of how you're reaching out to your membership? I've heard a few comments. Of course,
we don't have a formal communication strategy, but we will use on-the-street conversations, dropping in and stopping in as we continue on in discussions of phase two. We will use our website and email membership contact list to inform them of any meetings that we may hold and or the town may hold on discussions, public discussions.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Melanie. The BIA's role in arriving where we are today in terms of revising that report that was done in 2014, and then that collaboration was extremely valuable, and I think a good partnership between the municipality and the BIA. And I think, based on what I have heard at some recent public meetings as well as in the community at large, is that before phase two moves forward, we're going to need to revisit these designs at some level, because there's a great deal of controversy about them, and we're going to need to figure out how we're going to move forward with downtown improvement in Southampton in a way that meets public expectations. And the BIA is going to have to play a big part in that review. And I think also part of that review should include these things you're talking about here as well. I mean, we should be, if we're going to look at how we're going to do phase two, perhaps differently, it may impact how we look back at phase one, right, and change it as well. So I guess my comment is I think that as we proceed toward the 2019 budget, I think we're going to need to look for some recommendations from staff on how to come to some sort of new consensus around downtown improvement. And I think what we should do is include these requests from the BIA in that discussion, so that we can look at the whole thing as one piece and perhaps approve some budget dollars in 2019, so that we can get on the right track when it comes to downtown improvement in Southampton, a file which we need to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think we're having some difficulty with our live cast, so we'll take a few minutes. I think we'll move on. So the next, we'll come back to order, and our next delegation is Sally Kidson from the Hospital Foundation and Sylvia Sheard. They're here about the Southampton Rotary Grand Fondo on Lake Erie, and welcome Sally and Sylvia. And oh, well, there you go, a third one. Oh, that's fine.
John and I are.
The blue, just push the blue button. Yes.
John and I will go first and talk about the Grand Fondo update. 6 weeks to go. I can't believe it. I feel, as I was telling John Davinsky, it's kind of like having a baby. You start off way, way back and you have monthly meetings, and then you go to bi-weekly meetings, and then all of a sudden you're at weekly meetings. Well, we're at the weekly meeting stage. So, and then some. Before we get too far, I just want to say thank you to all of the communities who have been so supportive. Of course, the town of Saugeen Shores, Lisa, everybody has been fabulous. We met with the police department, the OPP detachments who are scrambling to try to find off-duty police officers to help us on the route. 160K is a long route to cover. Kincardine, Erin Eldersley, the town of South Bruce Peninsula, and Saugeen First Nation have all been amazingly welcoming and helping us out with facility rentals, and we are very, very grateful for that support. I wanted to give you a bit of an update on registration. This is a map of where some of the all of the registrations have come from. You can see Southwestern Ontario, and Ontario is kind of a big blob, and then we have a few in the States, we have some from Quebec, and some from out west. So we're pretty excited to have that kind of global or North American reach for our first year of this event. This was last week. We're actually up to just under 300 registrations at this point, and the 70K is the most popular. And then the kids ride, of course, we won't have any registrations yet until we get closer to the event. But we're really excited and pleased. We would like to be higher than 300 at this point in time, but for the first year, we expect this to climb over the next 6 weeks considerably, and we hope to top out around 500 or 600 cyclists in the end. These are just some of the simple demographics. Slightly more men than female are riding. But I think the age is pretty interesting, 49 and 48. So my question is, where are all the young people? Like, where's the 25 and 30-year-olds? Come on, guys, get on your bikes. I put a challenge out to all the sports teams and say, get organized, get your team out on a Sunday, and come and join in the fun for some cycling and help raise money for the hospital. Our fundraising goal is $150,000, and I just wanted to clear up a rumor that seems to be going around. We have engaged Multisport Canada to help us with logistics for that day, but they are not taking a cut of the dollars. Somebody seemed to think that was going on, and that is not the case. Every single dollar that is fundraised goes directly to purchase medical equipment. Costs for the ride, which include marketing, porta-potty rentals, off-duty police officers, security, rider mementos, rest stop food, rider lunch and beverages, is all covered through registration and sponsorship. In fact, it's mostly all covered through sponsorship, and the registration dollars are also going to help fundraise. So even though our numbers may be a little lower for registration, we do expect that we will get very close to $150,000 fundraising total. We are already at about $60,000 in that endeavor at this point. We really felt it was imperative that we did not skip on expenditures this first year. We want the first year to be so much fun that cyclists go home saying we have to go back next year and bring some friends. And Sylvia will have a little bit more on how much fun it's going to be.
We're continuing to put out promotional materials and ramping up further social media as well. You'll find that if you're on Facebook or if you're on Instagram, you'll see us pretty much everywhere, pretty much every day, pretty much every hour, which is exactly what we want. We want high impact. You should have received a link to our video, which we luckily had produced for free, and hopefully you've taken an opportunity to take a look at it, and we hope that you pass it on to as many people as you possibly can. It gives a beautiful view of what we're looking for and what the community is hoping to achieve through this. It really does give the best image. And this is one of the cycling mementos, or this is the cycling memento for the cyclists. You'll notice that there's a children's drawing on there, and that children's drawing has been used in a number of our publications. It's sort of become a trademark for us, and we thought the medal would be a perfect way for all the participants to receive something that is really, truly from our community. The ribbons are going to be new each year, but the medal will be a standard design. And there's the t-shirt. It is not the one I'm wearing right now, not the cotton one. It's going to be a technical t-shirt. And you'll actually find the technical t-shirt is being supplied by Carbon at a huge discount. We're very, very lucky. We kept the design simple and are excited to see how it'll be received by cyclists and volunteers. Carbon is the same company that outfitted our Canadian athletes at the Winter Olympics this year. And then here's our prizes. The first one, the top one, or the one on the left I should say, is the Grand Fondo Lake Huron Cup. Some of you may recognize this trophy. Yes, it has been repurposed, and we are very excited to be using that one. That's for the top fundraising team. They will receive the cup, or they will be awarded the cup. The bicycle on the top right-hand corner is for one of the draws that we're having. For every cyclist that fundraises $500, they will receive a ballot to win the bicycle, which was provided by Mike Martin's Cycle Shop in Southampton. So if you get $1,000, you'll get 2 tickets for the bicycle. The 2 Air Canada tickets, which were provided by the Air Canada Foundation, are also part of a draw. In this case, each cyclist that contributes $1,000 or through their fundraising efforts, will receive one ballot to get in the draw for the Air Canada tickets, which will take you anywhere that Air Canada flies, including the Caribbean and Hawaii. So there's a bit of an incentive. Anywhere in North America, sorry. And you'll actually find that the cyclist, if they make if they fundraise $1,000, that means they'll get 2 tickets for the cycle and 1 ticket for the Air Canada flight. So there's a good incentive to get involved as well.
So naturally the work is continuing. As I said, we are meeting weekly. Actually, we have 2 sets of meetings that we're doing weekly. I can't say enough about the expertise of Multisport Canada and how they've been guiding us through the logistics. It's a little different than to put together 4 distances with cycles. Cyclists go faster on the roads. They have different needs. They have mechanical needs. And so organizing all of that with their expertise has been much easier. We are also very, very thrilled that they will help us with our sponsorship recognition, and we are finalizing the after-ride picnic details, and Lisa and I are working very closely on all of those kinds of details. We are happy to say that the ride will be contained and safe at all areas, and we're very, very happy with the structure for that. But really, in the end, it's only partly about the cyclists. It is about what we are doing with the money. This event is something that we hope to grow over the years and become a stable source of funding for the foundation. We need to remember that this is about our hospitals. We need a new MRI in Owen Sound. This machine serves everyone in Grey and Bruce counties and beyond. It is essential to have a new MRI as the old one was purchased in 2004. Just think about how much technology has changed since 2004. Did you even have a cell phone in 2004? If you did, how big was it? And what could it do? You probably weren't using it for a camera. Translate that into medical equipment, and the advances have been amazing. We want the best for ourselves, our parents, our children, our friends, and our visitors. It's time. And also along those lines, the way IT is used to integrate surgical procedures, diagnostic testing, and patient records has expanded exponentially in the past few years, and there is a great need to update these systems to ensure images are private, accurate, and processed as quickly as possible. And that portion of the funds will be used to make those upgrades in the Southampton Hospital. But of course, the work we do is not all about the Grand Fondo. In the midst of preparing for this wonderful event, we are carrying on our normal work. The ER Lab expansion project is continuing. The hallway between the emergency room, registration, and diagnostic imaging is now open. The other hallway is closed as work begins in the area of the new auxiliary gift shop. Our new board of directors was elected at our annual general meeting. We said goodbye to 3 wonderful directors and have 3 new board members who have joined us. We also have the Bruce Power Golf Tournament on August 10th, and I believe Linda has shared some information with you on that. And then in September, we will begin planning for our annual Light the Way campaign, Light the Way Day, and we'll be holding our kickoff after Remembrance Day in November and have a donor and volunteer recognition night at the same time. So I know that you have on your agenda the request to waive the fees for the rental of the Coliseum and the annex in Southampton for this event. So we hope that you will take that under consideration to help us put that amount of money towards the hospital equipment. It will help us take those out of the expense column and put them in the fundraised column. And we will be happy to post something on the website to thank you for doing that. We would also request that the town continue to do promotion for the Grand Fondo Lake Huron, share our posts, keep things going. Anytime you can tweet it or put it out in newsletters, please do so. And finally, I ask that you get involved on a personal level. If you're not a cyclist and you don't want to ride, please make sure you sponsor someone. We also need volunteers to come out and man the route, help with registration and all kinds of tasks. So you and your family are more than welcome to join in the event, and it's going to be a great day. We're going to have fun. We're going to raise some money. And in the end, the most important reason, I just want to remind you about Kylie. If you haven't met Kylie yet, she's going to wave the start flag at the event. And Kylie's now riding a tricycle, but when Kylie was 4 months old, she almost died, and her life was saved at our hospital. And every day when I'm in the hospital and I see the people that come in and go out, I am reminded just how important the work that we do at the foundation is, and we hope that you will join us and support the Grand Fondo and everything that we do. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think Sylvia's going to present, and then we'll take some questions after that.
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sylvia Sheard. I am the current president of Southampton Rotary Club, and I'd like to thank the Mayor and councillors and staff for having us here this evening. We have a fun job. We're delighted to partner with the Hospital Foundation to promote it throughout Saugeen Shores and Bruce County. So we would like the town to enable us to put up some decorations through the town. These came from the idea from when the Tour de France was in Yorkshire in the UK, and all the businesses, people who own property, would paint bikes yellow for the Tour de France. We're obviously asking you with a challenge to turn Bruce blue. So these are examples of some of the bikes that were on the course of the route of the Tour de France. So I'm hoping people will do similar things and help us to promote it. So very interesting things. You could be very creative. So the Rotary Challenge to paint Bruce blue. So we're asking if retail stores will do the usual blue window displays, and salons can do the blue hair streaks, or you can do your own, and you can do blue nails. I think Mike would look very smart with a little blue streak across the top. Our restaurants could offer maybe some blue plate specials or highlight a blue speciality drink, and officers have a blue day at work, whether they decorate the office, have denims. And also property owners along the route, we're asking if they would paint all bikes blue and put them out, or any other blue decorations. We are going to use social media, and we're asking that anybody who does a blue display that posts their picture with the hashtag BlueBruce, and there will be prizes for the decorations. So we will award a gift basket to local home property owners, and then for actual business owners, we've been donated a marketing coupon from the Progressive Results Group of $250. So worth doing. So get your paint out and paint your old bike blue, and we are hoping that the town will allow us to Rotary to paint some bikes blue and put them at various places in town. And we will, of course, remove them afterwards. Or you could bake some cookies, or be even more creative and get people to dress in blue and maybe make a bicycle. And just hot off the press, I haven't actually got any, but I have the design, and we are hoping to sell a blue window cling to all the businesses who will take part. These will be sold for $20 to help cover our costs of these, and it will also show that everybody is promoting and supporting the Grand Fondo and, of course, our hospital. So, use your imagination, get your paint brushes out, and we hope that everyone will participate. We'll have a very blue county for a while, and I just want to remind people our healthcare is not a charity. It's an investment in all our healthcare, and I feel passionately that this is a want. It's not a need. We need to raise funds for our hospital and our foundation. So we do hope everyone will take part and make it fun. And of course, Rotary will also be doing the beer tent on the day of the event. So that'll be more fun. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you, Sylvia and Sally. And any questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Through you, this is for Sylvia. We've seen the route here a couple of times as presentations have happened, but are you able to reach out to property owners along the route, or how should people find out if they're on the route?
Yes, we will do organise with the foundation to do that. They will also be sending a flyer, and we will put in details about the Paint Bruce Blue too.
Lisa and the town will help us aspects of. We obviously have a height differential. different areas of towns as far as addresses and numbers that we will need, and to get that information out personally to each person's home on the route.
So Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sally and Sylvia and Jonna, for the presentation. The video is fantastic. Really amazing.
I know, it really, I think we were so fortunate that we have some great volunteers who have contacts and people who are willing to get on board and help and do something like that totally free of charge for us. And the way they depicted our town was just stunning. The footage of the cycling event came obviously from another cycling event, but it does give you the feel of what we're trying to accomplish here with ours.
And what you've done in a year to organize this and promote it is really impressive. I just have a quick practical question, I guess. Do you have any brochures? Do you have brochures for this?
We don't have brochures. We have postcards with everything and it just sends people to the website.
Okay. I'm just I'm taking a bunch of rail trail maps down to Sarnia Tourism on Wednesday. If you have some extra postcards, I'd be happy to take them and drop them off.
Happy to give you some, absolutely.
Okay, I'll contact you then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and once again through you. Sally, just from a logistical point of view, if somebody's watching or somebody around here in the room that wants to make a donation and wants to maybe sponsor somebody but doesn't necessarily have anybody that's reached out to them so far asking for sponsorship, if they went to the website, would there be a list of people that are on there, and you might say, oh, I know so-and-so, and I'm going to put $20 or $50
absolutely.
or $500 behind them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have 4 celebrity cyclists, Brian Longmire, Bill Buckton, Christine John, and Dana McDonald. And so if you didn't know anybody on the list, you could sponsor one of the celebrity cyclists as well. And the website is grandfondolakehuron.ca, and it's very easy to just go, and it says sponsor a rider, and simple.
If there's no further questions, thank you very much, ladies, and we're looking forward to a great event come in August. Thank you for all your work, which you've done. Our next delegation then is Laura Robertson, and she's here about vulnerable road users and the built environment.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Smith and councillors, for this opportunity. Linda told me it's a tight 10 minutes, so I'm going to skip a few parts of my presentation. So I'd like to start by saying, Saugeen Shores continues to grow. And as we do, we must consider the impact growth has on everyone, but most importantly, to those who are most vulnerable in public spaces. And one of the reasons we have to do that is that our responsibility to not knowingly cause harm and or risk to other human beings while planning the built environment is actually a legal responsibility we have. So I'll make sure I just wanted to explain that that's a shot of GC Houston and with the kids and their bikes parked at GC. You probably recognize that shot too in Southampton. All pedestrians, cyclists, and those using personal mobility devices are vulnerable. Children, seniors, and the disabled are most vulnerable. And as study after study shows, they are most likely to be killed or seriously injured by drivers. I gave you 2 links to 2 studies. I brought another one from Safe School Zones. And every study pretty much in the world shows the same thing. The most vulnerable people are children and seniors. But some of the studies have gone farther beyond just who is getting killed and seriously injured on roads. Talking about pedestrians and cyclists in terms of seniors and children. And I'm using the term drivers as opposed to vehicles because a vehicle is an inanimate object, and it's actually the person behind the wheel who actually kills or injures another human being. Secondly, because we know that these groups are most vulnerable to being killed or seriously injured by drivers, there's a legal duty of care that must be adhered to by all decision makers, such as town councils and staff. And I showed you this shot before, but I'm going to show it again because that is, of course, we want children to ride bikes. We want children to walk to school. And the MRI on the left is a compilation of many children who walked 20 minutes. The other one is children who sat quietly at their desk for 20 minutes. And it just shows how much more active a brain is when you actually are physically active. So, as I said, I've provided you a few studies about who is most vulnerable. In 2012, the Office of the Chief Coroner of Ontario published the report Pedestrian Death Review. And note that this study looks only at fatalities on roads. Parking lot fatalities and serious injuries to pedestrians are not included, though there are significant levels of both, especially to children through backovers. In addition, I have also included a recent American study that shows SUVs are the leading cause of traffic fatalities to pedestrians who are also seniors. In addition to this study, other studies show that light trucks, and light trucks are defined as SUVs, pickup trucks, and minivans, are by far the most likely killer of pedestrians and cyclists. And I mention these studies because it seems that the vehicle of choice up here in this area is particularly massive. And even though these same studies show that drivers and passengers are no safer in those vehicles, even though they are huge. And the Ontario Coroner's report found the following. 75% of pedestrian traffic fatalities occurred on urban roads. So then we need to focus on the area within the confines of Saugeen Shores while addressing pedestrian safety, as opposed to rural areas. You don't find too many pedestrians walking along side roads. 60% of pedestrians killed in traffic crashes were just simply trying to cross the street. So you think about it. They're killed because they're performing the most simple but obviously tragic act of crossing the road by foot. 35% of fatally injured pedestrians were aged 65 or older, even though they represent only 13% of the population. So this stat is for all of Ontario, but we know that in Saugeen Shores we have a significantly large seniors population. But where does this population congregate? Well, obviously the Chantry Centre, which is on Grey Street in Southampton. They have a membership of 50 and over. The Lawn Bowling Club on Victoria is another place. A lot of 65-plus people play tennis. There's a tennis court there. And anyone who's been to church lately knows congregations are made up mainly of those over 65. So the fact that there are 3 churches and the Lawn Bowling Club located right at the intersection of Victoria and High Street and the Chantry Centre less than a kilometre away tells us that this particular area within Southampton attracts a significant percentage of the most vulnerable road users who have more than a 1 in 3 chance of being one of Ontario's pedestrian fatalities. And I've just added some pictures of the kinds of massive vehicles we see in our area and how they impede pedestrians who are even on sidewalks. Also, 63 pedestrians killed at intersections were also 65 and over. So the point in the point in public space at which seniors are told to cross at, which is intersections, ends up being a very dangerous place for them. I wanted to show just how far beyond the traffic spot some pickup trucks go. 6% of fatally injured pedestrians were under the age of 16, and of these, 20% ran out into the street. In Saugeen Shores, we obviously find many children at schools, And because for the last 2 years, this town has laudably sponsored Bike to School Week, we have told children and their parents that it's a good idea to ride your bike. So the town has an even greater obligation in terms of duty of care to ensure that rides to schools for all children are as safe as possible. I'm going to skip a page. So because I thought what was most important is that we look at some of the graphs provided in the studies that I've provided you. So as soon as speed increases, basically fatalities really increase, and that's a very important. It's a very important feature to remember. Even looking back to what some people were saying in the 10 minutes before in the minutes they had before the council meeting started, this is what kind of vehicle kills. More often, of course, large van, large pickup, large utility. They're leading the way. I think it's also important to just look at annual cause of deaths. And of course, we warn children about the dangers of fire, but being a pedestrian is far more dangerous. So why am I bringing all this together? And that is because I think we have a very strong duty of care to children and the elderly. And I believe that all of those children and elderly should be able to walk or ride their bikes or go in a personal mobility device safely. And in doing so, we designate a number of safe school routes. So no one is walking or cycling to GC Houston, for instance, in an area where anyone is going over 30 an hour, where drivers know they are in an area in which children are walking and cycling, and they must decrease their speed. We must add traffic calming devices, such as traffic circles and speed bumps, so drivers must slow down and police must maintain a strict eye to enforcement. But the entire trip to school needs to be safe. So when we plan the built environment, we need to ensure that we do not introduce more traffic into an area and more parking where in which children should be flourishing, both intellectually and physically. And this brings me to the plans for the Bruce Power Innovation Center and the fundamentally flawed, and I have to say astonishing, especially because the town must consider their legal duty of care for the preference on Victoria Street. And I don't even know how it is possible to choose that area, because there is no part of Saugeen Shores in which all three of these most vulnerable road users, children, seniors, and the disabled, don't forget about the disability park, congregate. Please do not forget about these people. There are many places in Saugeen Shores where the most vulnerable road users do not congregate. Let's make sure that the Innovation Center is located in an area where the drivers and those who park their vehicles in what I understand is an area for 50-plus vehicles do not increase the harm to the most precious members of our community. And in fact, we will truly be connected to one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions of Laura? I'll start with Vice Deputy Mayor Hubert, then we'll go.
Through you, it's really just for some confirmation from the Director concerning the Transportation Master Plan, which is an agenda item later. The intent of the Transportation Master Plan is to include an active transportation component that would take into account pedestrian activity and bicycle activity in the town. Am I correct in making that assumption?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's part of the plan.
There were a couple of things that jumped out from a lot of the research that Laura gave us, and thank you for that. Two of the sort of catchphrases that rang out to me were, walking is part of almost every single trip that you take, because you get out of your car and you get into your car, but there's some walking involved, and just a good thing to remember. And we had a BIA presentation about downtown Southampton. The street in downtown Southampton is a destination as well as a travel route, and that came across in some of the stuff that you said too, or that was in some of the research. So I just wanted to just pull out those two things and confirm about the Transportation Master Plan. I would also ask through you to the Deputy Mayor, who I believe is still the chair of the Police Services Board. I think some of the data, of course, is coming from the states and various places. We don't often hear about pedestrian incidents here. So just, at some point, perhaps in the future, if there's any kind of report that can come from the police concerning, some areas that maybe have had some incidents or some opportunities where, the police are kind of aware of potential and that we can start to think about those things. So I'll just throw that idea over your way for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions and comments based on the content of Laura's presentation, but if I could, I'd just like to provide some information about Laura's background that I think demonstrates how really well qualified she is to speak to us about cycling issues. Last Thursday on July 5th, the City of Toronto opened an exhibit called Bike City, How Industry, Advocacy, and Infrastructure Shape Toronto's Cycling Culture. And Laura's work as an advocate for women's cycling is being recognized in this exhibition, which is going to be open until I think the end of November. At the end of May this year, Laura received the Lifetime Achievement Award from Canada Bikes at their National Bike Summit and Conference in Ottawa. Laura was a founding member of this organization, Canada Bikes. It's a national advocacy organization, and she received her award at a function hosted by members of Parliament and senators. And finally, in 2000, well, not finally, because Laura has many awards, but these are most recent ones to do with cycling. In 2010, Laura published a book called The Cyclist Bike List. The next year, it won the silver medal for the Book of the Year for Children's Nonfiction at the American Library Congress Annual Conference. The book is intended for young readers, but it also gives an overview of the history of the bicycle, how and why bikes work, how the body works with the bicycle. And there's a little bit about some of the great cyclists through the 20th century and how to prepare for a really good ride with necessary equipment and supplies. And as I was listening to the Gran Fondo presentation, I was thinking that perhaps some of our Gran Fondo cyclists would find this book to be useful in preparing for their rides. I asked Laura for this information. She didn't really volunteer this to me. I asked her because I knew she'd won some recent awards. I am very happy that we're continuing to invest in cycling programs and infrastructure, and that we have organizations like the Hospital Foundation doing a wonderful event like Gran Fondo. And given that, I think we're very lucky to have a resource like Laura in our community. Now, just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Vice Deputy Huber has already mentioned the studies and perhaps use for those studies. They are very interesting and I think would be really useful if the Transportation Master Plan is approved tonight. I would ask that these studies be included as resources for that master plan, because they do have a lot of really practical recommendations in terms of street infrastructure. Some we're already doing, and I think in some cases we have a lot more to do. So I think that would be very useful, and I would ask for us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace. Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to ask Laura two questions, and I'd like to direct a comment to Amanda, if I could, please. And the comment would go first. So, Amanda, the picture of the pickup truck that's right over halfway over the sidewalk, it strikes me that your boulevard maintenance and creation of boulevards, the distance between the curb and the sidewalk, we should look back at some of those areas and that photograph that are applied to our community and say, when we do an upgrade or a redevelopment of a road, a street, downtown area, maybe site plan control, considers how close those vehicles come and whether or not we need that separation distance. And I'm sure you know that. If that's something we can consciously put into our thinking in the future. Great. And I apologize in advance, Laura, because I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with your academic standing and ask you for a couple of opinions. So one of them I've been advocating for 4 years is that I think that Southampton has to learn to change. And reverse angle parking is what most futuristic communities are moving to because it's safer, way safer.
Yes.
And your picture depicted cyclists going past where people were going to back out, and they've been doing it for years in Southampton, and I understand that. What I'd like to ask you is it time? So is it time to look to change that? Is that what you're showing in that picture, is a request to think about a request for change? So that's the first question. The second one is we had a presentation, we're going to have a presentation on Chancellorsview Drive, and we had many speakers talk about leave it alone. It's a little bit of asphalt blended into some grass, and we like it that way. In your academic opinion, is that something that we really can support? You speak to the need for our legal duty of care. And so, to my way of thinking, I've heard Amanda speak to this as well, that she believes that she owns some responsibility to make things safer, and that curbs and sidewalks ultimately make things safer. And I've been hearing that it speeds cars up to have sidewalks and curbs. Can you comment on that? So there's two questions for you to consider.
Okay,
Thank you.
So the first one, in terms of Southampton downtown, because High Street is where the angle parking is, and Victoria is angle parking too. I mean, personally, as a cyclist, I ride way out from those cars because I know they can't see me. And the other thing is, if there's a giant pickup truck, the person in the car who's parked beside them can't see me either, right? And so you get basically real blindness. And I wanted to show how the children's bikes were against those cars, because as you'll read through those reports, you see that now even small cars, those pickup trucks just slice the top half of the car off when they hit them. So there's no hope of anyone living in the other vehicle, let alone the child on a bike or a pedestrian. So and there's lots of books about that. So when we're talking about preventing those, a vehicle that size of hitting anyone, they don't have to be going fast to really harm or kill someone. So I ride way out, but I see that most people don't. I don't know why they don't, because it's crazy not to ride, claim your lane, as we always say in Toronto. So I do believe that the back end is way safe. It has to be way safer, because they can see where they're going when they're backing out. And I think the consultants that the town hired, that was one proposal by them, if I remember correctly, that you change the way in which people use those angle parking. I mean, ideally, you want to make it so nice to ride a bike that people don't drive at all, and that they realize they do have a heart and lungs and legs, and they can ride. So, or walk, or use their personal mobility device. The reason I put that picture of the boy coming around the corner on the sidewalk and the woman with her walker, and you can tell they're about to hit, is because what I think happens with the parents is they say, well, you can ride to tennis, or you can ride, to the music camp, but you can't ride on the road with good reason on High Street or Victoria. So they say ride on the sidewalk. And then what happens to the elderly people is they're too afraid to use the sidewalk, and that is called now house arrest. House arrest of seniors, because they are literally too afraid to get out of their house. And it's because we designed in opposition to their right to be out and to be active. And of course, all of that just exacerbates itself, because when they don't go out, they get sicker and sicker and less and less healthy. and we never see them again really outside. So we really do have to look at that downtown design without question. But that's a downtown street where there's lots of stores. But when you have a road that is basically like Chantry View, which is at the tennis court, where I see tons and tons of children's bikes and adult bikes too, that does actually change it. And I could show you lots of examples from Europe where and Quebec, where they just don't allow cars. And so it's all pedestrians and cyclists, or if they allow cars, it's local vehicles only. And then, there are no sidewalks and no curbs because there's virtually no cars. And it works. It seems to work. So you don't always need sidewalks. You definitely need sidewalks when you have that kind of amount of traffic, but you don't need it if you can really either slow down the traffic or really, really reduce the traffic.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, did you have a question, Mike? Councillor Mike Myatt.
I just want to thank you, Laura, for your presentation, and just thank you again for your strong advocacy. You've done it for a long time. You've been a strong advocate of safe roads and bike lanes and trails, and I just want to commend you for that. Keep it up. Don't let up. Don't let it up on us. We took out those 2 pedestrian crossings, and pedestrian activated now. We've got 40 kilometers of trails. We've got bike lane going from County Road 25 from the highway down the lake. We're trying. We're working on it, but there's a lot more to do. I have a question for you, Laura. I did read those reports, those studies, and there are lots of good information. Page 65, one of the report. Minister of Transportation, MTO, there was a call for amending the Highway Traffic Act to allow for municipalities to erect non-signalized pedestrian crossings in mid-block areas. I want to comment on collision details. And in the report, it talks about 31% of collisions occurred at mid-block crossings in between parked cars. I just want to get your comment on mid-block crossings. Can you comment on that just for a second?
Sure. Yeah, because I think pedestrians say to themselves, oh, I have to go across the street. I have to go from Harrigan's to Sisters. I'm not going to go up to the lights and wait for the light and then cross and then go back down again. Pedestrians say, I'm just going to cross the street because Sisters is only 20 meters away. And so they'll always do that. And I think we'll always find those mid-block crossings. And so if we reduce the traffic and reduce the speed, then we have less likelihood of those pedestrians being hit when they do those mid-block crossings.
I guess my question, just to further follow up on, Laura, because there's talk about actually one of the plans in Southampton is to identify mid-block crossings for pedestrians. That was my point, really.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, I know they do it, and they're walking between parked cars, but there's call for mid-block marked pedestrian crossings, and I guess that was my question of you, with your experience in other communities, how you felt about actually building that into designs where we have them marked.
So they'd be like the yellow. Well, it seems to really, really work. People get used to that crossing, and they cross there. I think even Owen Sound has that, right? On 2nd Ave, right? And it seems to work. Yeah, it seems to work really well. I'm also going to send you, I found this afternoon, a new study by Transportation Canada that looks at all of this. So you'll have Canadian stats, etc., and along with the American stats, which will maybe be quite helpful.
Question to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Mayor, is with the Traffic Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, will that be looked at, mid-block crossings, as part of the Transportation Master Plan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. School crossings and crossings as part of the scope, yes.
Okay. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question, and Amanda, I apologize for not sending this to you earlier, but in the second report, the one that was published in 2012 from the Office of the Chief Coroner, follow up on Councillor Myatt's question, it says that Ontario was either the only or one of the only provinces in Canada that doesn't allow for municipalities to create a bylaw to create a non-signalized pedestrian crossing for mid-block crossings. Now, this study is 6 years old. Do you know if the Act allows us now, the Traffic Act? And I know you may have to follow up on that. You may know.
Through you, I don't know. I will have to follow up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Laura. So the next item on the agenda is a Environmental Services and Transportation Staff report. It has to do with Boulevard Care Bylaw, and our Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, Amanda, is going to present.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I brought this to you for comments 2 weeks ago and received a couple of them. I was able to incorporate some of them into the changes that you see here today. They were pretty minor. One comment that I felt wasn't needed to have anything changed in the bylaw was the one about the rule. We talk about limiting riprap in the ditch. Other than that, there's still the ability for people to plant what they want in the ditches. Still wasn't looking to have someone put something that's super tall in the ditch. Obviously, mailboxes and trees and that are allowed on the property side of the ditch. So I thought that was okay. I did correct the typographical error that you caught, so thank you for that. And then one that came up after was one about vegetables and grains being restricted and whether we wanted to continue with that and whether that should include fruit. I haven't changed it in the bylaw currently. My concern with allowing vegetables and grains is if someone was to build a garden with wood around it with stakes and chicken wire and the tomato stakes and those sort of things. We don't want that in the boulevard. So if you have ideas or wishes to change on that one, then we can do that prior to approval by council. But the goal of the Boulevard Care Bylaw is so that the residents recognize what we expect from them and then what we expect to give back to them. So it'll explain snowplow damage if we do it, or if the utilities are there doing the fiber like we're seeing through Port Elgin right now, what their responsibilities are for restoration. Same with what you can and cannot put in the boulevard. Most of the restrictions are based on talking with the snowplow operators and what size rocks become projectiles, which ones are a pain to deal with, those sort of things. And then also the risk of things like small retaining walls, trying to mitigate that risk.
Thank you, Amanda. Then the recommendation is that Council pass a bylaw to provide for the care of municipal boulevards. Questions? I'll start with Vice Secretary Huber.
Thank you, and through you to the director. I was surprised. The reference was used that all of this relates to the fact that we're about, excuse me, related to health and safety and well-being of residents, and yet I'm just kind of surprised about all of the use of concrete and asphalt throughout. Is there not some way that there can be consideration given to more permeable types of material, in the sense that, there's references in a number of places about not impeding drainage, and certainly concrete and asphalt impede drainage in a big way. So, I just would ask that maybe you take another look and see if there's ways to work in some permeable elements that would trap water where it falls, or at least give it a chance to soak into the ground there instead of just rolling away to another part. Another thing that I was a little unclear about was the comments related to parking. So there was a reference, and sometimes it was confusing whether the boulevard was related to the area between the sidewalk and the curb, or the sidewalk back towards a property line, which was considered road allowance. And so the reference to paving over something to create a parking space, I didn't find that very clear there as to what it was attempting to do. The reason why I asked that is that our zoning bylaw has various requirements related to parking on a property, and we have driveway permits and that sort of thing. So I just found that a little bit confusing, so I'll just leave you with that thought. But my main comment that I wanted to make was, and then I have a question too, it seems to be very much focused on stopping people from putting shrubs and trees. And I guess, there's in both towns, both Port Elgin and Southampton, there were incredibly tree-lined streets not that long ago. And, it just seems, like we're saying, you can't plan. I guess, maybe there's some education there about how something can be planted close to the sidewalk that would serve a purpose to throw some shade on asphalt, throw some shade for people walking on the sidewalk. And I guess I'm just seeing this as a very negative proposal related to street trees that I think, we should be a little more encouraging and supportive of the introduction or installation of street trees back into areas where we've kind of cleared them all out for various reasons. Age and health of the trees is one, but sometimes there's been other issues. Because I think there's opportunities where there isn't underground servicing and where there isn't an area where potentially there's a sidewalk or a sidewalk plow situation that there's a wonderful opportunity to put some trees back in the ground in those parts of the town. I did want to ask, though, just as a question, there's a very specific exception, snow. Does that mean that we're just saying that snow can be dumped in boulevards? No problem with that.
Oh, through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there's 3 questions in there. So the first one, if you look at section 2.6, I added the approved alternative parking. So the intention of that is to allow the turf stone or pea gravel or those sorts of materials to allow the parking in the boulevard. That doesn't have to be concrete or asphalt. When we talk about parking on the boulevard, it needs to be between the sidewalk and the curb. It cannot remove sidewalk. So the confusion may be because not all boulevards have sidewalks. So where a sidewalk exists, we cannot have parking on the property side of the sidewalk. It would only be allowed between the roadway and the sidewalk. That make sense?
So as an example of where that would be possible, in Victoria Street in Southampton has that much space between the sidewalk and the traveled portion of the road. So that's the kind of boulevard you're talking that could potentially, with some kind of agreement with the town, there could be a surface treatment there that enables parking.
So through, not Victoria Street because it already has parking on it, the angle parking, but so we propose it for Chantry View. So where they have the rolled curb, we're allowing 3 meters onto the boulevard for parallel parking on Chantry View when the project is completed. And another good example is Bricker Street down at Pearson Park in Port Elgin. The entire boulevard is paved there and people pull up off the road and park up on the boulevard there.
I guess the stretch of Victoria I was talking about was Morpeth South. So there, it's not angle parking. There is a wide swath of grass that people have to cut across to hit their driveways. So would that be an example that is sort of akin to what you're talking about too?
If that would be one that would be looked at, yes. Normally we have it with the curb, so you still have the delineation of the driving surface and the parking surface. So where on Victoria there isn't curb, then that would be something that we probably would not support. The second, the trees. So this does not preclude the town from planting town trees. This precludes individuals from planting trees within our right-of-way. And the third one, I think it was the snow. Thank you. No, there's no restrictions on putting snow. I don't think that any of us are saying you can't put your own snow on your boulevard from your driveway. That's what the intention is to allow.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Amanda. My question is, this doesn't say that it's residential application only, so I'm going to make an assumption that it's community-wide, so it would be applied downtown business type areas as well? That would be my first question.
Yes, that's the intention.
Okay, so notwithstanding how we grandfather people, I raised a concern with, in particular with the Tim Hortons on Gustavus Street, that they went from a site plan controlled grassy area next to the sidewalk, and they've changed it to River Rock. So the River Rock, I believe, is a size beyond the size that you speak of here. Not only would it be, it's an issue for your equipment, snow plow removal equipment, sidewalk plow equipment equipment, but some of those larger entities end up in the traveled portion and can spin off of tires. So I would like you to consider looking into that and seeing how that site plan control allowed for that change and whether or not it meets the intent of what you're trying to accomplish here. I don't think it does. And I'm willing to take advice on that, obviously, that you find out it's okay, that's okay. And another one, there's a dental office that was changed from a residence into a dental office, and it had a small white picket fence right up tight to the sidewalk as well. So are these examples of entities that you would support, or we should be going around looking for these? Not me, I can send some to you, but the municipality over time should be saying, yeah, you can do that, we'll accept that, no, we're not going to accept that, and will this bylaw be able to bend with those people current and in the future?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's a hard question to answer sitting here. Every instance of an existing situation would be reviewed and discussed and a decision made, but going forward we would not be supportive of a white picket fence right at the back of the sidewalk. There's lots of reasons to allow it to continue now, and if it can be handled by the snowplow drivers, those sort of things, then I don't know why we would go looking for those to change them. There are things that come in for complaints. Those absolutely are investigated when there's a complaint on it. The picket fence is an example. If it's a 2.1 meter wide sidewalk, maybe it's not an issue because we can still get the 1.5 snow clearing, and so then it meets the intent of what we're trying to do, and we wouldn't necessarily pull it back.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Amanda. I think it's a pretty good bylaw. I guess it may or may not come as a surprise to everyone that the question on fruits and vegetables came from me. And the reason why, I think that the central purpose of this bylaw, which is a sensible one, is to limit the height of things that people are going to put in the boulevard so that people can see, right? You come out of a corner, you don't want to have something more than 45 centimeters so for safety reasons. And so I think you have that in the bylaw. It's firm. 2.1A can't exceed 45 centimeters. I mean, that's pretty clear. And the drainage item, which is clearly an issue in certain neighborhoods across the municipality where people have indeed put things in the right of way that are impeding drainage. And we can't have that. It's for obvious reasons. But then C, 2.1C, can't contain vegetables or grains on a boulevard abutting his or her property. It doesn't do the same thing. I mean, there's lots of vegetables and lots of grains that don't exceed 45 centimeters and could indeed be planted without impeding visibility. And so I just think that as far as the intent of the bylaw goes, I think 2.1C doesn't further the intent of the bylaw, and therefore there's no reason to restrict it in this bylaw. I'm never eager to restrict things when we don't need to, and I don't see any reason as part of what we're trying to achieve here to include 2.1C. So my hope and suggestion would be that we remove 2.1C. I think the bylaw is just as strong without it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions? All in favor? Councillor Grace, if you had a question.
Yes, sorry, maybe I missed this, but what was the purpose of containing the prohibition on vegetables and grains?
Mr. Mayor, it's honestly from a personal experience where someone was growing corn in Cambridge on a corner lot of a busy street, and it was way too high, and you couldn't see around the corner. So I knew that was an issue going forward with this. When the question came up, I asked around if anybody could see any other reasons as to why it would be good or bad to have that in or out. And one came up as the enforcement of my neighbors eating my strawberries that are planted in this, or my neighbor did this, took my XYZ. So if it's not allowed, then it does prevent that. That's something that maybe we could add back in if it becomes an issue of enforcement, or we could leave it here now and see if the opposite happens, if anyone's trying to plant vegetables and fruit in the boulevard.
Okay, any further questions? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So the next item on the agenda then is, again, an Environmental Services and Transportation Staff Report, and it has to do with the Traffic Bylaw 103-2009 amendment, and again, Amanda will present.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can see the changes that are on there listed. They boil down to adding new stop signs that are the result of new developments, changing the stop sign at the highway to signals for when the signals go in at Devonshire, adding the definition of a roundabout so that people understand what they can and cannot do. Pretty much you can't turn left in a roundabout. You go right and you signal your exit. And then the second one is to define better what materials cannot be stored on the road surface. So we've been receiving calls about landscapers and construction material being stored in the actual asphalt, and this would clear that up, and those materials would no longer be allowed to store in the right-of-way. It gives us more control over building sites as well when we're doing infill lots and when we're doing development applications and when people are just doing normal renovations.
Thank you, Amanda. Then the recommendation is that Council pass an amendment to the traffic bylaw to update the current stop signs and roundabout signalization and definition changes. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. So the next item on the agenda then is our Community Services, Parks and Recreation staff report. It has to do with the waiving of fees for the Grand Fondo Lake Huron, and I believe Lisa is going to present.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I am here tonight, and I will keep it very brief because of the earlier presentation from the folks with the Hospital Foundation. The recommendation here tonight is asking Council to approve the waiving of the facility rental fees for the Southampton Coliseum on the weekend of August 18th and 19th. 2018. The reason we bring this recommendation to Council, in addition to provide information about the event, is that the current facility booking policy does not permit the Director of Community Services to waive this fee because it is outside the criteria of the policy. However, although this particular event is not contributing specifically to a Town of Saugeen Shores project, we believe that the greater impact of the fundraising event and the dollars that the Hospital Foundation raise make it warrant it to be an event to be considered in terms of waiving the fees for the project because of the funds that they do contribute to the community and how the community as a whole benefits. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Then the recommendation is that Council approves the waiving of facility rental fees for the Grand Fondo Lake Huron fundraising event organized by the Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation at the Southampton Coliseum, scheduled for August 18, 19, 2018. Questions? Doesn't seem to be any. Then all in favor? That's carried. So there's two items there, some board minutes, and that's the end of our agenda. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison and Councillor Rich, all in favor? We're adjourned. We'll reconvene at 9:05.